Circadian rhythms are very important for the organism. About 50% of all our bodily cells are dependent on some kind of rhythmicity. To steer the circadian rhythm, you don't need UV. You need the visual light spectrum and especially the blue wavelengths that we receive fully when we go outdoors.
Welcome to Sunlight Matters, the podcast that reconnects us with the sun. Join us as we explore the power and influence of our star, the force at the heart of everything. Each episode, we speak with leading experts to uncover the ways sunlight shapes our world.
Welcome to today's episode of Sunlight Matters, and we have a very special guest joining Georg and I today, and that is Arne Lowden, author, researcher, academic from Stockholm, Sweden. So Arne, would you briefly like to introduce yourself and then tell us a bit about the book that you've just written?
Yes, I am a sleep and light researcher. I live in Stockholm in Sweden, and I have been investigating how light behavior affects our health and behavior as well. I have recently studied what happens if there is a snow cover. Do we receive more light, although most of us work indoors? And actually, yes, we could see an effect of snow cover. Snow cover will increase light exposure, and that could be helpful during the dark days. And I have also been studying various groups in society that are subjected to what we call social jet lag. That is a disturbance of your circadian rhythms. So those groups are, for instance, shift workers. That could also be teenagers.
I was going to say teenagers and students. Yes. And
exactly. And also we've been studying old people's homes and people living there. Of course, those who are very old and ill, they will not be able to go outdoors much. So that's also a risk group.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we're gonna dive into that in a bit more detail in a bit in the podcast. But I was keen for you just to sort of talk a bit about the book that you've written, which is called Survive the Winter. And it's broken into three parts. And I just wondered if you could just sort of talk through the three parts of the book and what it is that you were trying to achieve with the book.
Yes, it is quite handy to have three sections in a book. I heard from the publisher, so we decided to do that. And first of all, there has to be some kind of background for those who are not that familiar with what light means to humans and in the evolution of our eyes, because we do receive light through our eyes, and this is a process, and this is how the brain is reached by light, and then it produces hormones to inform the bodily cells about what time of day it is. So we needed a section that took care of these explanations of how we are affected by light exposure. And then, of course, the implications, what happens if we don't receive enough light. And then finally, what can we do about it? What to think about in the ways we behave towards light, but also how we use electric light. Is it possible to exchange daylight for electric light, for instance? This is one question. And in our time, we spend more and more time indoors. This is a phenomena all across the Western world. We also seem to be less active.
Yes.
That is, we choose, for instance, to go to a gym in a basement rather than maybe go outdoors. So our behavior in these days really points toward a less exposure to natural daylight. We also live in a fantastic time because actually now it is possible to introduce electric light that very closely resembles daylight. So it's a promise actually, and we know we will talk a little bit about light therapy, for instance, and we now can actually, I think it's possible to present a light that is very healthy, also for those who cannot reach the daylight.
So can I mean, it's interesting because I mean, I was actually reading some research which saying that even since COVID, people are spending even less time outside. And you know, I think one of the things you talk about is our bodies were designed for a 12-hour cycle of daylight on the savannah, and I guess that is how we're kind of all geared, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. We are really built to have 12 hours of daylight and then again 12 hours of almost darkness, and this forms and gives us a very nice circadian rhythmicity, and which is healthy, as we have seen. Our human body needs to restore organs, and we need to have a very nice recuperation with sleep, etc., during darkness, to be able to be active during 12 hours at least, and maybe 16 hours of wakefulness. And also in the old days, actually, people were spending quite a lot of time outdoors. For instance, this country, only 150 years ago, most people spent a lot of hours outdoors because they were farmers, for instance.
Right.
And this this is a pity, because this means that the evolution hasn't really formed a system to warn if we have too little light. And I sometimes compare it to hunger and thirst. These are very strong drives and tells us what we need. But the need of light is not signaled to us, because only recently we have been spending so much time indoors. So this means we have to, in other ways, inform people about the need of light.
So
Arne, you
and
were,
it's
sorry.
because I guess this is all tied within the notion of this circadian rhythm, and I just want, because you know people will often read about circadian rhythms, but I just wondered if you could sort of quickly demystify what that is,
Yes,
and because I think it's important for people to understand that.
I
yes,
would be curious about you mentioned the 12-hour cycle, and in Nordics like Sweden, you do have a drastic seasonal change. So you have a lot of light in the summer and almost nothing in the winter. So how do you deal with this, and how would nature like people to deal with it? Like, is there a winter hibernation, or what would you suggest in these regards?
yes. Unfortunately, we cannot behave like bears and other animals. But but in Sweden, where I live, we do have daylight also in winter. For instance, in Stockholm, we have 6 hours of daylight also in winter, and there are several capitals, not many capitals that north. We have Helsinki, we have Oslo, we have Stockholm, but all these cities have at least 5 6 hours of daylight um, in December. So this means we do have access to daylight still, and so what happens is that we have a lack of light during the dark season. Now, this gives us not enough light to signal to our brain time of day. So this means our circadian rhythms is a little bit out of rhythms. The most common phenomenon is that we tend to go to bed later, and choose to get up a little later. And so we are a bit jet lagged in general during the dark season. Circadian rhythms are very important for the organism. About 50% of all our bodily cells are dependent on some kind of rhythmicity. That is, they are active during parts of the day, and they go into a more restoration um, scene mostly during darkness. And also we have a lot of hormones that follow a rhythmicity that is close to 24 hours. Now, the thing is, we have all individuals have a different internal rhythmicity. It's close to 24-hour, but as a sleep researcher, we tend to divide humanity into two. We say some are evening types and some are morning types.
Night owls or skylarks. So.
Exactly, there are many names. And this demonstrates that we have different rhythms. And we say that, throughout evolution, this is very good because some could watch while some could sleep,
Right.
etc. We could sort of, some people would get up early and feed the animals, etc. So maybe this was a good for our survival to have different rhythms. But this actually will affect our behavior and how we react to lack of light. So if you are an evening type, you have a tendency to have an internal rhythm that is longer than 24 hours.
Okay.
So like we have seen in the blind, if you can't use light as a time setter, you will actually adapt to your internal rhythm. So if you're a very strong evening type and you have like a 24-hour internal rhythm, you will go to bed 1 hour later every day.
So
And
it's
this is
a 25-hour cycle, right?
exactly, you will follow a 25-hour cycle, and only after two weeks, you will have a very, very, I would say, discomforting cycle, and you will not be able to adopt to the rest of the society. Actually, you will not be able to have a decent work. And there are people who actually have told us about how difficult it is if you can't regulate your circadian rhythm.
I mean, it's
Anyhow,
so Arnie. It's fascinating you mentioned that because my father-in-law suffered from dementia, and one of the things that happened to him is his day and night switched. So we'd go and see him in the day, and he'd be asleep, and at night he was awake. And so the dementia impacted his circadian rhythm, or that part of the brain which manages it. So it's kind of fascinating to hear that can kind of happen.
well, yes, that is a good example. In dementia, the system of regulating your circadian rhythm will be disrupted and sometimes also actually destroyed. So that is a difficulty. We know that dementia patients are benefited by light therapy, so that they
Okay.
can have a clear, more clear circadian rhythm, and this also actually brings some good results in their development of their dementia. And anyhow, if we again talk about the evening types, what they need is actually a very strong light pulse during the morning hours.
Wow.
And in the old time, the rooster would tell us when the sun goes up and people would go outdoors. And evening types need this morning light to be able to follow a 24-hour circadian rhythm.
So the evening types probably need to then be getting up earlier than they would.
Well, at least they need first to have the morning light, because it's impossible for an evening type to go to bed earlier. And sometimes we complain of our teenagers that, oh, why don't they go to bed in time? But the thing is, they can't because the hormones are not not adjusted to the clock.
Okay.
So what we call the social clock or the sun clock, that's one clock that is exactly 24 hours. And then we have our internal clock. So all these bodily cells, they need to know what time it is in order to be able to be regulated in accordance to the 24-hour clock. So that is why light is the most important timekeeper for the circadian rhythmicity. And we see a lot of disturbances, and the disturbances are very much similar to what we experience in jet lag when we
Right. So you
travel
call it
across time
social
zones.
jet lag, I think.
Yes, at the home base, we call it a social jet lag. So it includes being having sleep disturbances, daytime fatigue and sleepiness, a sense of weariness,
Right.
and it affects your motivation and also performance, etc. And a number of physiological functions, hormonal cycles, and cortisol, um, um, and adrenaline,
Arne,
and yes,
like practically speaking, for people living in cities like I do, for example, I mean, if you have a garden, you can go out in the morning. You are really like, even if it's cloudy, I learned that it's already enough to go outside in the morning, even on cloudy days. But having like an apartment in the city, would it be enough in theory to just open your window and look into the sky for 10 minutes? Or what can people who live in cities, which is the majority, do?
yes, I think it's not a very good tactic to open your window and just stare out your window. It is very good, actually. It is a very, but people won't do that. So I think it's better that they go outdoors and sit and read the newspaper, or, bring the computer
Or,
to the balcony. I
or own a dog, I think, is a good one as well. So we're doing some research of our own on dog ownership and people getting outside.
exactly. What a nice way to get daylight, to have a dog, because the dog will always remind you that, please go and seek the daylight.
And I mean, just on that, dogs will have their own circadian rhythms as well, won't they? So,
Exactly. And yes, the circadian rhythm is quite genetic. So of course you will, if you're sort of genetically, um, if you are an evening type, you will always have a problem getting to bed in time. But if you have regular light pulse, you will actually be able to adapt to also to 24-hour rhythm. And most people can do that quite well, I think, in society. But as soon as you don't get that daily dosage of light, you will have problems. And for most people, they think that, oh, but uh, maybe on Sunday I can go outdoors. Or they say, oh, I have this travel booked to Mallorca, or some vacation coming up a month later, and they think this is enough. But it's a bit disappointing for them to know then that what we need is actually a regular dosage of strong light. And actually, just by sitting close to the window is good enough.
okay.
And the window glass blocks maybe 30% of the light.
Okay, well that's interesting because again, I was reading or listening to something which was saying that patients in hospitals which are near windows tend to recover quicker than
Yes.
so there is obviously a really strong and that was one of my questions actually is if you sit behind glass, does it impact it?
Yes, it does. But it means that also by driving a car or sitting in a bus, you do receive daylight. And the thing is, the dosage will be a little bit smaller. So
And it's
you
also
have to
big specific spectrums which are filtered out, like UV is especially filtered out, and that's
exactly. But
necessary.
the, to steer the circadian rhythm, you don't need UV. You need the visual light spectrum, and especially the blue wavelengths
Okay.
that we receive fully when we go outdoors. But then, of course, depending on the light spectrum of our light bulbs, most people, at least in Northern Europe, they tend to like the yellow light.
Right.
And this is not so nice, actually, for the rhythm.
So when you say it's important to have blue light in the morning, would it be sufficient to just check your phone right away after waking up and have
Exactly.
blue light dosage in your like sleep?
Yes.
Okay.
If you if you position your phone really close to the eye, imagine it will actually take up a large part of your visual field.
Yeah.
So if I go close, that's better.
So
The thing with windows is that only 3 meters away from a window, a normal window sized window, the effect is dramatically reduced because the field in your view of this window will just get smaller. So we have to teach, educate people to stay close to the window, really close. That really helps.
So I'm just showing you this. So this is a Vision Pro from Apple. And it's funny because I was talking to someone from Apple and saying, you know, the light I get when I look at sort of some of their videos feels like proper sunlight because of the colors they can use and you know, so I'm guessing from that, if I looked at blue light through a Vision Pro, because it's sort of so up close, you're going to get the effect that you need as well.
Problem solved. Problem solved.
But remember, this blue dosage of light, it actually, we have it in the daylight. You know, daylight during the morning hours is quite bluish
Right.
if we look at the spectrum. But towards the afternoon, and of course, when the sun goes down, we have more red colors. And this is a time where you should start avoiding blue light. So if you have a habit of using your device in the evenings, it will actually give counterproductive information to the
Right.
brain.
Okay.
The brain will actually think that, oh, have you moved to the US?
That's it's fascinating. So
Yes.
so one of the things I wanted to talk about was the impacts of this social jet lag as well. So I mean, I'm somebody was born and raised in the tropics, and now I live in the UK. We've just endured a miserable winter, although it wouldn't look like it. You know, we had a whole month where we didn't see the sun, and you know, it really does affect me. So I get seasonal sadness, sad or whatever. I also suffer terribly from jet lag as well. So you know, I sort of feel like I'm very
Yes.
connected to my circadian rhythm. But I was just wondering if you could just talk about some of the actual impacts from a kind of psychological point of view that people may have, and also then talk about light therapy because we sort of touched on it. But is there a way to or if wavelengths or whatever that you should be looking at to avoid things like SAD?
Yes, we have a situation in the Northern Europe and maybe especially in the Nordic countries where we very clearly see that about half the population will admit that they have more difficulties with their sleep and with their mood and energy levels during the dark months as compared to the summer. So we also know that maybe 30% of these have a little bit of more of a severe situation, and then and maybe even a less percentage, let's say 4 to 8% have a sort of more of a sort of handicapping situation where they have to go to the the clinic and be treated maybe with antidepressants or so. So there is a variety in sensitivity, of course, but we clearly see that the visits to psychiatric clinics increases in winter. We also see a very clear increase of use of medications, both antidepressants and sleep aids in winter. So there is a clear societal effect of living in the north. We also know that the far north you go, problems do increase. So in northern Sweden, people have larger problems than in the south.
Famous maps of the world, and then you see like the countries and the happiness index, and the further away they are from the equator, the worse it gets. It's like completely matching what you
Yes,
say.
but remember, yes, we call it sometimes the latitude hypothesis, that we do believe that latitude influences health. But we have also seen in studies that happiness actually increases in the summer. Whereas if you live close to the equator, you have a very even curve across seasons when you look at mental health. Whereas in the Nordic countries, you see that we get actually more happy in summer and less happy in winter. So we have sort of this annual cycle
Yeah, I can
also.
confirm this. Like living in Europe,
Um,
I can confirm.
Can I ask, have you done it? Because I know like the British are famous as big drinkers and things, and I wonder if there's sort of a degree where there's some self-medication going on. So in a way, it's depressing that what you're saying is as we go into the winter months, people are having to use pharmaceuticals to kind of help them sleep and things. And I wonder if there's another way around that, because that doesn't feel good. But I was just wondering about, like, alcohol is quite prevalent in sort of the UK and I guess Scandinavian countries, and whether you've looked at sort of that as a thing to help people get to sleep or whatever.
well, yes, it's very common that people do take some alcohol to go to sleep. But the alcohol consumption has gone down. We see sort of a more modern drinking habit. Binge drinking, for instance, has gone down quite a lot in many countries. We see a more drinking also on weekdays. It's a more what we call continental style of our relation to alcohol. We know that, for instance, um, there's a connection actually between summer and alcohol, because people are, on vacation, and it's a lot of sun outdoors. There's a lot of um, more social interaction during summer. You see friends more often, etc., and that actually will induce more drinking. So it's a vulnerability during the vacation period also. So it's a little bit difficult to say, but we also know that during the light season, light gives us more alertness, and also there are some people that are sensitive, so it also can trigger maniac reactions, and this will cause even more at times more drinking, and also it might induce suicide behaviors as well. So there is a problem with a very, very bright season as well.
Is that because people are unable to sleep so much, or?
um, it has more to do with the I think the light being alerting. Yes, it
Okay, so
really
it's sort of
affects.
firing them on adrenaline and.
Exactly. So we have to be careful during the bright light season or the summertime to have darkness during sleep. We need very good shades. in our bedrooms, for instance. And
I
this
mean
is
that's so interesting because one of the thing again, I'm sorry to talk about myself, but when I come into spring, I always, as the days get longer, I've always found it actually quite difficult to sleep. And it, you know, my body takes a little time to adjust with that daylight kind of coming through, and you know, so
okay.
it's interesting to hear what you're saying.
Yes, because we have a bright light coming very quickly in the spring, and the sun, for instance, in this country, you know, already at 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun is up, and people haven't had time to see that their shades in the bedrooms are good enough. So it's almost surprises them. But
Use these eye
there's
shades.
Yeah.
eye shades are good. You know, there's many things you can do to help your sleep.
So I mean, it's interesting because one of the questions I had was about you've got eye shades, but obviously sunglasses as well. So you know, you're wearing slightly tinted glasses, I can see.
Yes,
But you know, I've been again reading quite a lot about the impact, the negative impact actually of sunglasses on people. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts around that.
oh yes, oh yes. You know, if you are a person that wears sunglasses during the winter season, then you're probably sensitive to light. And there is a group of persons that are, what should I say, oversensitive to light, and they try to avoid light. And this means they will definitely not. They will be evening types, most of them, and they will actually, many of them will choose to be night workers because they have a sense that they don't like the light. So they are very jet lagged, and we know that some people, like if you have diagnosis like ADHD or similar diagnosis, then you might be more sensitive to light. And we know that those have more problems also with their sleep and regulating their circadian rhythms. And so we actually have a little questionnaire, light sensitivity questionnaire, where we ask people when they use sunglasses. We all should use sunglasses during summer and especially in the middle of the day, because we have to protect our eyes because there's such a lot of energy coming from the light, and it has to be transformed in our eyes to heat, but also there will be a lot of waste products in our eyes, and it's very difficult for our systems to take away these waste products, so that by aging we can see that our eyes are also they are really aging, and we get a less efficient um, eye system. So there are things with the with the sunglasses. I think that we should avoid using sunglasses in the mornings going to work, for instance. I don't think we should use sunglasses just to be, how shall I say, stylish. We should, we should use sunglasses when appropriate. I realize, yes, my glasses are tinted as soon as there is a strong light. And even today, although we have an overcast day in Stockholm, they are a bit tinted. I realize you can see that. I get, when I go outdoors, even on a winter overcast days, I get 5,000 lux, which is the strength of the light. But as soon as I go indoors, there's a tenfold decrease of, and I can use my glasses, almost to detect. So as soon as my glasses are tinted, I know, oh, good. Now I have a good light
Interesting.
outdoors.
So we're sort of running quite short on time, but I did want to talk about light therapy as well. So you know, so when people are looking to get an extra dose of light other than putting their phones up to their eyes in the morning, what are some of the other things that people should be looking at in order to get that light therapy?
Yes, there are a number of companies making light therapy lamps, and so they can be used. I think you have to try it out, and I think normally it's a good tactics to start to get familiar with where is the peak of your rhythm and where is the trough, the lowest time of your rhythm. And there is a rule of thumb here. So if you ask yourself, when in the morning would I wake up if I were had a free day and not geared by my alarm clock? So if you would answer, let's say 9 o'clock in the morning, this means that the trough or minima of your circadian rhythm is 2.5 hours earlier. So that would be 6:30. Then you should never have bright light before that time. You should adjust the exposure to come slightly after that hour. So what you should do to get the most effective light therapy is to maybe wake up 15 minutes, 30 minutes earlier, and then do your light therapy treatment, maybe for half an hour or 1 hour. And then maybe you then could try to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. So our light receptors in the eyes, they are more sensitive to the bright light, actually the blue wavelengths, in the mornings. So if you do the bright light treatment later in the morning or in the before lunch, then we are not as sensitive. But of course it should not be ruled out to have a bright light therapy session also in the in the late morning.
Right.
But this means to get the best dosage, you actually need then to stay longer with the bright light. You should never have bright light treatment in the evenings.
So in the evening, should you be looking at red light or?
Yes, that is of course much better.
And is that worth it from a therapeutic point of view, having red light?
Well, if you're talking about the infrared bright light sort of treatment, there is now I've seen it's getting popular to have this infrared, but that actually has very much less scientific evidence at the moment.
Okay.
It could be healthy for your skin, of course, and the production of substances in the skin that is good for health, etc. But it's something different.
Okay.
So we are now today. I think we're much more talking about the bright light therapy
Right.
use,
Okay.
and you have to do it. You have to try it out for maybe 2 weeks, and do it on a regular basis, daily. Then it is a very good way to, I think, to actually um, prevent these feelings of depressions.
Okay.
It's also good to use actually in combination with antidepressants. People people do realize that they get depressed and maybe they start too late with their light therapy. So actually light therapy should be given, I think, try to avoid this, by using it in preventive times, and also it can do. It might well be used in combination, I think, with medication use.
But I think if people, from what you're saying, if people are looking at it from a preventative point of view, then hopefully they can avoid medication. So
Yes. We also have to remind ourselves, because antidepressants is now the first line choice of physicians and doctors, but antidepressants doesn't really tackle the sleep problems
right,
and the alerting effect that light
It
gives.
makes it even worse, as far as I know.
Exactly, we have to use, I think, still light therapy to be able to adopt our circadian rhythm to the clock time, and also to get alert during the day and to feel energetic.
I
no,
think what's so
interesting.
cool about sunlight is, and like you can do a lot of self experimentation like rather easily without complicated lab setups or something. And anecdotally, I just last Saturday I spent a whole day outside, which is not so common. I mean, spring is coming now, but this happened, and it has an impact on my system immediately. Like the whole week unfolds differently, and I feel better. I feel more awake. My sleep is better. Everything just gets better. So it's really something. I mean, I'm encouraging all of our listeners to just spend more time outside in the sunlight and try it out themselves. It's for free and it's so positive. Yeah, and you can just try it out and see yourself. You don't. I mean, I think it's always cool to have scientific research being done to confirm new modalities and stuff, but it's really something everybody can try out themselves and just see, look at their bodies and their mind, how it, yeah, changes.
Yes, of course. It's the best thing is actually if we in a smooth and natural way can be exposed to daylight in our daily lives, and I very much look forward to new offices when it's a possibility to go out in a greenhouse, for instance. Can you imagine an adjacent greenhouse to offices where the people can go and talk, have meetings, stay? You don't need to be there the whole day.
The Shadowmap headquarters in
Yeah, no, that's it. That's
2026.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yes.
I guess there's a question, which is if people are dreading winter because of things like SAD, what would your advice be? It sounds like Georg's advice is to get out in the sun. I mean, would yours be the same, or?
Oh yes, but there are many things you can do. I think if you're aware of your problems in winter, if they are repeated every winter, of course you can plan to go south for a vacation. If you have, you can plan vacation also in winter. That is a good way. And of course you could try the therapy lamp for breakfast for your kids, etc. And I think also to be able to sit close to windows if you have the possibility. And if you can't do that at your work, you can actually try to reach daylight during lunch, maybe have a walk outdoors during lunch break. Um, you have to, there are a number of different, I think, things you can do. And of course, why not try the outdoor gym once
Yeah,
in a while?
Mm.
Or, you know, um, try to get out. Did you say get a dog,
yeah.
Dave?
Own or borrow a dog. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
These
So,
things are also very helpful. I'm using them now for a month or so. A friend gave it to me, and it's really helpful. Like I really see the impact that using these at night when I'm working late, it has an impact on my sleep. Like my sleep is as good as never actually right now, which is
yeah, oh, that is so good. Yes. I myself, I have a blue filter on my computer, on my phone, etc. And those blue blockers are nice. Yes. Good, good for the rhythms.
so final question for you: if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live with all of this in mind? Because we're like Georg and I, we talk about finding your spot in the sun, basically? Like, where would you go to find your spot in the sun? Or are you quite happy living in the Nordics? And
Well, the thing with us living in the north, we do very much enjoy the different seasons.
right,
I love, for instance, to go skiing, cross-country skiing in
oh yeah,
winter. So I'm a little bit troubled these days with a global change, etc. So I think I think the ideal thing is actually to live close to the ground where I can go outdoors and have a cup of coffee, you
okay,
know, in daylight, maybe close to nature, and to have generous windows, and to be able to set up a daily habit where I can actually, follow the seasonal change and to see changes of time of day, and to be able to catch the sun when it's there. But I also know that these overcast days and the snow, etc., will help. So actually, I'm quite happy with living at a latitude of 60, and I think in my daily habits I will be able to reduce my social jet lag actually.
fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. And
Okay.
we're hoping that your publisher will publish your book in English. But it's been fabulous to talk to you. And get your insights. So thank you so much for joining us, and I love the fact that you've joined us from an outside place in the middle of Stockholm as well.
Oh, fantastic that we can meet in these ways, don't you think?
Fantastic.
Indeed, yeah.
And have these talks about
Yeah. Well, look, I
the
mean, this is
benefits of light.
it's great to do a podcast where we're sort of all spread around in different places, but we've all found our own spot in the sun. So
Yeah, it's such a great idea you have with this podcast, I think.
thank you.
Yes.